in the Lesson 2.6 application, we are looking at a football statistics, and this is the lesson about finding the least squares regression line. It says, did the Broncos buck the trend? In 2013, the Denver Broncos football team set the NFL record for the most points scored in a season. Below is a scatter plot showing the relationship between passing yards and points scored for all 32 NFL teams in 2013, along with the least squares regression line. So number one asks us, for the passing yards, the mean is 3,770 yards with a standard deviation of 594 yards. For points scored, the mean is 375 points with a standard deviation of 70 points. The correlation between passing yards and points scored is R equals 0.616. Use this information to calculate the equation of the least squares regression line. So remember, the least squares regression line has a slope and a y-intercept. And remember, even though we think about it as y equals mx plus b, they actually use y equals a plus bx, which is really confusing because in this equation, b is the y-intercept, but in this equation, it's the slope, okay? So just be really careful on that when you are seeing that and it makes sense to you. So that's the m, and this is the y-intercept, okay? So first of all, we have to find the slope. So if you remember the formula for finding slope, when we are given, first of all, we have x and y, right? We have x, we have the mean of the x's, and we have the standard deviation of the x's. Then we have the mean for the y's and the standard deviation for the y's. Remember that the formula is we take the correlation factor and then we multiply it by the standard deviation of the y variable divided by the standard deviation of the x variable. So if I plug that in, it's going to look like this. And then we're going to divide the standard deviation of the y, which remember the y is the points, divided by the yards. And so I'm going to do that on a calculator. And the first thing I'm going to do, whoops, I'm just used the wrong value. Hold on. The standard deviation is 594. Sorry about that. Okay, so now I'm going to use my calculator. I'm first going to do 70 divided by 594. Then I'm going to multiply it by 0.616. So that's going to give me about 0.0726. That's the slope. Now remember, to find the y or y-intercept, the a value, it's like we're solving for a, right? So to find the y-intercept, which is a, we are going to subtract the bx, so y minus bx. And obviously this is mean. And so we just have to plug that information in. So we're going to plug in for the mean for the y, 375, that's the points mean. Minus b, we just found. B is 0.0726. Here, let me scoot this over a little bit. And then I'm going to use the mean for the x, which is 3,770. And again, I'll use my calculator on this one. So I'm going to do the 0.0726 times the 3,770. That's going to give me 273.70002. 273,702. So when I do that subtraction, I'm going to get that the y-intercept is approximately 101.298. So now I just have to write the equation of the line. So y hat equals 0.072, or actually, let me plug it in the other way. 101.298 plus 0.0726x. There is the equation of the least squares regression line. So a little bit of work to do there. You got to have those formulas memorized. And so the next part says the point for the Denver Broncos is highlighted in red. What effect does this point have on the equation of the least squares regression line? So you can see right here on the graph that is above the least squares regression line and also pretty far away from the mean of the passing yards, right? And we talked about how in the little activity that we did with playing around with correlation and regression, we found out that the further away the x value is, the more likely it's going to affect the slope of the line. So the question is, how would this affect the slope? Well, the fact that this is above the line of regression means that it's going to raise this slope up even higher. So it's going to become even more positive, which is then going to make the y-intercept actually decrease. So that's what we're going to say. We're going to say because the point for the Broncos is above the line on the right. Remember, we said the further to the right it is away from the other points, the more likely it's going to affect it. It is making the regression line steeper, and in parentheses I'll just say more positive, and decreasing the y-intercept. Obviously, if the line is more sloped, that's going to mean that the right side goes up and the left side goes down. So that should give you some practice for lesson 2.6.